So, you have come to see the review for Kenobi. Did you really think it would be as good as you thought? Foolish fan. It was going to always be a TV show that was gonna be kind of, like it wasn't all that bad, but it could have been better too.
Obi Wan Kenobi comes from us from Disney and LucasFilm. It's the latest installment in the Star Wars universe as a TV show on the now constantly expanding universe, and it stars Ewan McGregor, and I think it's very important to mention Hayden Christensen is in here. Not the whole time, but he's in here. The basic premise of the show is after surviving Order 66, this takes place about 10 years later afterwards. Obi-Wan is still trying to protect Luke. He's waiting for Luke to begin to show signs of him being a Jedi, and because of that, he's trying to make sure he's safe from Vader and from anybody who's after him, because there's now Inquisitors, people who work for the Sith, who are helping to seek out the remaining Jedis and kill them. Meanwhile, Princess Leia becomes in danger due to a plot, and this brings Obi-Wan back out in the open. However, Obi-Wan is no longer as skilled as he used to be. He's out of tune with the Force, he hasn't used it for a while, his skills are not as formidable, as Vader would say, as they used to have been, but when new foes and new darkness begins to prevail, Obi-Wan must find it within himself to get back to the way he was, to once again balance the Force. Now, that's my basic, IMDb synopsis of this show. I will say, despite the fact that this show was a bit of a letdown in a lot of parts, I think this show was pretty fun. I had fun with it. I have been excited for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show ever since it was first announced, despite the fact I didn't believe they were actually going to make it. But also, one thing to keep in mind is this was originally going to be a film, the series was. And you can feel that. You can feel them sometimes pulling just to try to, get more for filler to make it last that long. Now, I reviewed the Book of Boba Fett before, and I really wasn't too keen on the way I reviewed it. It was a little too basic, a little too vague. So I'm going to give a basic review of every episode, and then in the end, I can give you my rating. But I'm also, before I do that, going to talk about the performances within here. So let's get started with that. Ewan McGregor is fantastic in this role. I think that by far he has proven himself such a standout that has come from the prequels and carried over and continues to be iconic. His hybrid of old young Ben Kenobi is phenomenal. He has so much emotion and so much depth that he puts into this character, and you can feel the passion and love that he has for Star Wars. It just was truly moving. There were scenes that he did where it made me get a tear in my eye sometimes. And his performance is earnest, and it's so real. He really does make Kenobi feel like a real damaged man. There's certain vulnerability, a certain man he's getting older. He's not as good as he used to be. And he's damaged. He's hurt because of what he had to do to Anakin. That's affecting him into the back of his brain. At the same time, Anakin is kind of this ghost now that he thinks of, that's kind of haunting him. There's even imagery about that in the show, and it's so good. He played this so well. I was pleasantly surprised at how much he put into this character, how deep he went, and how well he made it work. Moses Ingram, she was not very good in my opinion. Her acting was very subpar. It didn't quite meet the level that it needed to get to for threatening or imposing or for the character that she was and is and becomes throughout this show. It was very underwhelming at times, and it often felt very stiff and very scripted. I'm not necessarily sure she was the best choice for this role. Maybe they saw something in her. She is very good in the physical scenes, as everyone is, but I really think that her performance was probably the weakest one throughout the main characters in this series. I wasn't very fond of it. I don't think it was what it needed to be. It felt very rehearsed at times, but then again, Star Wars for me, I don't go into it expecting the most amazing acting, because it's Star Wars. If you actually think about even the original trilogy films, the acting really isn't that good, except for maybe James Earl Jones and Harrison Ford. Most everyone else isn't really phenomenal actors, so I don't hold that against her by any means. Vivian Lyra Blair as young Princess Leia. This is a standout for me. I think that fans have put so much hate on her and have had so many problems with her. I have to say personally, I like her. I'm gonna go and say I love her. I love her character. I love the ideas they did with it, and I love the way she played it. She gave Leia this fun, brave, headstrong, heroic little princess feel, and her performance was so warm and so inviting, and I enjoyed every single scene with her. I loved little Leia, and I wanted more of her throughout the entire series. She's one of my favorite parts of the series, and when they introduced her, that's actually what got me hooked, where I was like, I'm coming back for the next episode. It was such a good idea, and this little girl, I think, is a really good actress. I think that she's doing a very good job with the character, and she's very good at emoting when she has to, and having this kind of playfulness to Leia, where I can see Leia in this girl. And that was something that was very, very important to me. Joel Edgerton as Uncle Owen is once again very good in his performance. It's pretty much just a very protective family member. He doesn't want anything happening to Luke. He doesn't trust Obi Wan after what's happened with Vader, and now he wants to keep Luke safe. And his performance is really in such a way that you relate to him, you get it, at the same time, you know that he needs to understand. For Vader, Hayden Christensen and the man, I don't really know who he is, who performs in the suit for Vader, do a fantastic job. On top of that, they use technology to de-age James Earl Jones' voice to make him sound like original Vader, and Vader, I loved in this show. I love that he is a young, more violent, less intelligent Vader. He's intelligent, but not in the way he is in the original trilogy. He's very much driven by his emotions more than anything else, and that was wonderful. Which now leads me to explaining about each episode, so let's get into it. Episode 1 was a suitable entry and a suitable introduction to the series that I think served its purpose very well, was good enough, but also had some very good standout moments within it. It was something that I think brought a certain coolness, a certain new feel and flair to the series and to Star Wars. It was really great to watch, and I enjoyed it a lot. Episode 2, I think even better than Episode 1. A standout episode, I think, for me, just because this is when a lot of characters and ideas that I liked began to be introduced. I found it very, very interesting to watch, and I loved what took place in it a lot, mainly because of certain things they do with Obi-Wan's character and journeys he's to take personally for himself. Episode 3, not necessarily the best episode of the series. I think it is a very mixed bag of good ideas, great sequences, and badly executed attempts at things. However, in the end, it plays out for a good enough watch, and I found it very enjoyable. Episode 4, probably, in my opinion, the weakest episode of the entire series. It struggles to really be very good, and it makes a lot of decisions that I'm not very fond of. Episode 5, a bigger improvement, a step in the right direction, and an entertaining and thrilling episode that finally begins to close out things in a suitable fashion. Episode 6, a very well done and a very good finale to the show, which gave me certain things I really wanted to see, but at the same time didn't entirely satisfy me with some decisions that were made. That's my general overview of episodes. I'm just going to talk about the series in general now. I have to say the conflict, the emotion between Darth and Obi is phenomenal. You can feel it. When they are together, it is something that is so rich. You can feel everything within both these men and how it's changing. This show also, for me, honestly, has given me a much bigger appreciation for A New Hope and the original trilogy. This, I think, is by far my second favorite Disney show out now. If I had to rank all the seasons, this is my second favorite season out of a Disney Star Wars show now. That's live action. This was really good for me. I do have issues with it in the sense that I feel like it retcons some things. The canon isn't always the great. Characters often struggle, but despite, I think, the flaws, I'm able to overlook some of them because of the end product and how satisfied I was in the end. Maybe it's just because I'm a big Star Wars fan, but for me, I think despite it being a mixed bag of a show, this show was something that I definitely like, want to go back and watch. I love characters and ideas they brought into it. I love that they expanded and built on things in a way that I feel bettered Star Wars. Something that I enjoyed watching, despite the fact it felt filler at times. But it did give me things that I've wanted to see, and of course, Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan is always a welcome thing for me to see. The Empire in its earlier stages was phenomenal. Seeing the remaining Jedi, it is such a good show. I don't want to spoil it for you. This is a spoiler-free review. I might put out a spoiler one, I'm not really sure. But that's about my thoughts on this series. I'm going to give Obi Wan Kenobi a 6 out of 10. Now I know what you're thinking. You're like, you really praise this a lot. Why Solo? There's enough flaws in it, I think, that kind of detract from it, but not enough to entirely damage it, and I still really overall enjoyed this show. So thank you guys, as always, for watching. Keep your eyes open for more videos. Thank you for always supporting me, and I will see you all next time.